pajama party crime story. I hope everybody's doing well this evening. Thank you for coming and joining me. I was trying to listen to the last little bit, but it's like I was expecting it to be over by 8:50, then it was 9, then now it's 9:05, and I'm like, okay, I got to get started. I was hoping to hear the last little bit of Mob Crew. We've learned a lot, and as my title states, are we missing key details? Are we overlooking something when it comes to the Sebastian Drake Rogers case? And we've learned a lot. Jennifer Coffindaffer did her show, and then she went over the Mob Crew, and Mob Crew kind of picked her brain, and it was kind of interesting. So again, welcome to the evening show. I gotta be honest with you, this was rough. This was rough. I even got myself, which I probably should crack it, a soda to keep me awake. When I wake up, sometimes, especially in the cold weather, I toss and turn, and I finally go to sleep in wee hours of morning, so I'm not up at the crack of dawn. But here lately, I'm still waking up, and I can't go back to sleep before the crack of dawn. And then I'm up really late with you guys. So anyways, it is the life. Gigi, it's nice to see you. Melanie, Grace upon Grace, Kendra, Tabitha, Denise, it's nice to see you. Lynette, Rebecca, hello. Lizzie, Mickey Shell, it's nice to see you. Chaos Bunny, if Chaos is here, I know VI is lurking in the bushes. I wish I had my buttons. I miss my buttons when I'm in here. I should bring them in here. I forget. Me and you, it's nice to see you. Brenda, MC, good afternoon, good gracious, good evening. April from Illinois. Phil, it's nice to see you. Bobby, Truth in Time. Peggy, nice to see you. Bunny, hello. Frank, Debbie, our beautiful Betty fan, reminding you guys to hit that like button on your way in. Everybody on social media these days. A podcaster found evidence in Riley Strain's case. Underestimated the platform if I've ever seen one. Yeah, I mean, we do good work. It's just that law enforcement, I think the problem, what terrifies law enforcement is that historically they've been able, back in the day when we had free press, truly free press, investigative journalism, which is dead this day and age, unless you're on social media in many cases. There's still some great mainstream media people that take investigative journalism seriously, like Law and Crime, Court TV. But for the most part, these local channels are controlled, I feel. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Law enforcement is terrified not having that control. But our Constitution calls for a free press, not a controlled press, a free press. And so I think that mainstream media has lost their way in many respects. And if they hadn't lost their way, it wouldn't give people like me an opportunity to talk about these cases. We also know, Sebastian Rogers is a great example where mainstream media, they tell their story, but as soon as the, one little headline here or every other week or every month or every few months is just not enough to continue a case or to keep a case interest in the public eye. And they don't do enough investigative journalism on these cases. They do whatever they're told. Oh my gosh, this is, somebody's been arrested, or there's a homicide, or there's a missing child. And then they dive into it, and then they don't really do any investigative work. They never challenge the people that are stating this. Look at Ellen Greenberg. What media dove into that case? If it wasn't for the parents fighting, nobody held the politicians and the autopsy. Who? If they challenged it, it was such on a low scale. It's frustrating. That's all I can say is it's frustrating at times. I don't want to get on too much of a tangent. Who else do we have? We have Tara, Stephanie, it's nice to see you. Brienne, Lynette, hello. Frank, hello. Our sweet misery is in the house. True Crime Addict, it's nice to see you. Adrian, hello. Our beautiful hindsight is here. Christy, hello, hello, hello. Debbie, it's nice to see you. West Virginia, holla girl. There's BA, I see. Michelle, it's nice to see you. Crystal Pistol, hello. We're through everything. You working people up in France. Are you waking people up in France? One or the other. It's nice to see you. So, I think we listen to the inconsistencies. We know the red flags and the inconsistencies. But what other information and details... Sorry, I'm reading this. Sorry, I had to read something. But what details and other information are we missing? Hey, Ginger, it's nice to see you, love bug. We're missing a lot, and I think that we need to focus on some of the information and critical points that stand out in this case from the very beginning. Let's move the evidence and the lights video. Let's move those to the side for a second. Let's just talk about critical details that have not received sufficient attention. Hi, Pam. It's nice to see you. I like Lore Lodge, and most people who agree aren't very... No, they're not. They're not. You guys are finally seeing the truth and the light. You gotta... For many people, I know a lot of you guys are new to true crime, probably new to YouTube, probably new because of this case. But the stuff that you're seeing in this case has really been going on for years, and it's just gotten to the point where it's erupted. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's festered so much that it's just been on steroids in this case. And it's sad that it had to happen in the Sebastian Rogers case, but it was bound to happen in somebody's case where everything just went crazy because they just don't stop. They're so addicted to the revenue that is generated from all the hostility that they can't stop the hostility. And so sometimes when it gets to that point, the only thing you can do is just buckle up, right? It's going to be a bumpy ride. We need to finally address this. And I'm glad at this point there are people that are bigger than Bullhorn Betty that say they're sick and tired of this crap and they're going to do something about it. And so we're very thankful for that, right? But getting back to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, because I don't want to dwell on all the garbage. People say that we bash the mom and stepfather. We do not bash the mom and stepfather. We simply talk about it. Yes, I believe they're responsible for something. I personally believe that they're responsible for something very, very bad. Just because I believe they're responsible for something very, very bad doesn't mean they are in fact responsible for something very, very, very bad. That is just the way my brain works when I'm analyzing these cases. Okay, we do have a serious situation here. There is a 15-year-old boy at the time he disappeared. And what we learned from law enforcement is that he was not on video camera. He was not seen by a third party in the flesh, right? There was no third party that eyewitness that saw him. And there was no scent for the dogs, okay? We're not getting into that because, again, we're going to be talking specifically about shocking details that aren't receiving enough attention. So in addition to all the facts that we have, let's just look at this from the very beginning. So we kind of went back over, we just left the mob crew. We kind of just went over the beginning of the day, where you went, what happened that morning. Let's talk about specifically February 26th around 1 p.m. The very first thing that happens is CP goes out and tells the news crews, do not record his home. One. The next thing that is stated is to Seth within 30 minutes of him arriving home, talking about the unthinkable. These are very disturbing information. How about the revelation of the picture, the optimism shirt and picture that the mom was trying to pass on as a Sunday photo, when it was later revealed that was from the day before, Saturday, while they were at Costco's, not BJ's. And she's shoving it in everybody's face, saying, look, he was happy, right? When you're pressed with something, now let's look at Seth, because, right, we don't want to just pick on one set of parents. Let's not do that. Let's look at Seth's behavior. What did Seth do? Seth came to the house. He went directly in the house. He immediately noticed that shoes were missing and brought that up. He went directly into his son's room to find out what he could see. He sat down and talked to law enforcement and them. Not one time did he say, don't record me. Let's go out and make sure the cameras aren't on the house. That was the least of this man's worry. He got a call as he's getting off work, 911. He calls back, and the first thing out of the person's mouth is, don't be mad. Not, have you heard from your son? Did your son call you? Has he expressed any kind of upsetness? Has he expressed anything to you? He's gone. He got up in the middle of the night. He ran out of the house. Do you know where he could possibly be? Did he call you? Do you have any missed calls from weird numbers on your cell phone? None of that. So let's talk about the behaviors, the shocking details that aren't being discussed. The behaviors and actions in the middle of all of this. Let's talk about stuff after that. We're not even talking about the inconsistencies. Let's just talk about their behavior. And people want to say, well, people handle different things differently. Okay, I get it. And that might be this original sting of not knowing where your child is. You might be a little concerned and handle that differently. But did they handle it just differently? No. They used back doors to try to accuse Seth. So much so that he took a polygraph, a public polygraph, and produced his alibi publicly, which is his work records. They accuse and have been accusing neighbors. When somebody's driving by their house at the beginning of this, Chris would literally watch for people to go by his house. And when somebody did, he popped out on them and wanted them to go home. Is that normal behavior? Yeah, we get it. Everybody acts differently when faced with major issues. But really, you're creeping outside your own house and stopping cars and telling them to go home? You have enough energy to do that, but not actually physically go out and look for your child. That to me is a weird behavior. Shocking, if you will. Accusing neighbors. Hiring, how about the harassment campaigns, right? Hiring the unscrupulous PI, getting involved with the felons of YouTube that don't mind committing criminal acts, and harassing people, intimidating people, going to people's house, going real life. These are the people that do that, and this mom and stepdad just got in bed with all these people. Now, I can understand, right? We can all understand acting differently. But is this really how people act when they have a missing child, if they act differently? How about leaving their home in the middle of a search? I mean, we realize that people act differently under certain stresses. But you would think that the love for your missing child would supersede that. But maybe I could be wrong. I could be wrong. How about hiring an unscrupulous PI and all of a sudden his calculations just magically are so far off by many, many degrees when he used AI to get the most accurate reports possible. And those accurate, so-called accurate reports totally miss the home where this child disappeared. But when you actually factually put this stuff on paper, it has their whole side of their house where light's generated from. So then this band of misfits decides to threaten witnesses, so much so one of the neighbors had to leave their home and go stay in a hotel. Had their PI falsely accuse another. Now, again, I understand people handle stress differently from person to person. But does people really, when they stress out, accuse people that they've never met before of harming, or hiring somebody to accuse other people that they've never met before of a crime? Or how about their children? Is that really behaviors that are just different than people that are under a lot of stress? In my opinion, it's not just one thing. There's a whole you get my point, Michelle. We're going through a long list here. We're going through a long list here. When my daughter went missing, I was living in Canada, Victoria, BC, and I went out every day and showed her picture to people down. Do you know what? This is not a missing person. This is when Sean Paul Schulte found out his daughter was deceased, and those were the married couple, the lesbian married couple that witnessed Brian Laundrie smacking Gabby Petito in the face in front of the Moonflower. Kylan Schulte worked at the Moonflower. Do you know her dad lived in Montana and came here and put a box at a park and sat in a park every single day trying to find out what happened to his daughter? Every single day. That's the love a parent has for their child. They just don't throw their hands up and say, well, at some point we've got to learn to move on with our life. Sorry. And this was a father of a grown daughter. She was grown. She was married. Again, I understand people grieve differently, people act differently under certain stresses, but this isn't acting, this is deflection, in my opinion. They're working with people that utilize illegal substances and don't condemn them, don't fire them off their group. As a matter of fact, want them to come back online. Clearly the person has, personal issues that I would think that you, as a friend, you would want them to address. If one of my mods in here, just think about it. If one of my mods in here was caught doing illicit substances, do you think my conversation would be, I still need you tomorrow? No, it wouldn't. My conversation would be like, I really hope I don't see you in my chat for a little while. I think you need to work on yourself, get yourself situated. You always have a home here. However, obviously there's something going on in your personal life that I think you need to address a lot more than online activities, would be kind of my commentary. It's not like we're picking on the parents no, we're not. They have a child missing from what they told the world was a completely secured home. And my question is, if nobody saw this boy walk out of the home and he's not on video, who determined this boy walked out on his own free will? When you question the mom and stepdad about it, they said, well, that's the only logical explanation. So nobody did see it. So they are assuming. Remember, this is the same thing that the stepfather has adamantly stated. He doesn't like people speculating and assuming. But they speculated and assumed he walked out of the front door and locked it behind him without anything on him except diapers, because let's face it, throughout this process, we learned that this child was forced to wear diapers inside that particular home. So we got a 15-year-old in diapers, thin pants, and a thin long sleeve shirt that, this brings me to the next thing, that they can't recall what's on his shirt. But as the mob crew has pointed out, and I will play the clip in its entirety. Let me find it first. There. Did it not come through? Ah, shit. Must have failed on my end. How would I get that? Hold on a second. I want to get this over. Hold on. I'll be right back. Sorry, it took me a second. I needed to get off this so it could finish sending to my other phone, which I had sent it before I started, and we've been talking for 21 minutes, so it was just held up because I wasn't on the actual thing. But I want you guys to hear this. I want you guys to hear this. Oh, maybe I should put it... Hold on. Let me see if I can get this like this. Get this up like that. Can I hit the button? I'm sorry, Delilah. Don't be all crazy next to me because you hear all the stuff moving. Okay.
Kind of black t-shirt or sweatshirt that might be a Minecraft or something. I forget the other logo they mentioned. And sweatpants, right? And yeah, he has no coat, no cell phone. I would think, if he was going to, if this is a runaway, he would try to contact his father. And, but there's none of that. And no shoes, which I find very interesting. I've kind of gone over, in my opinion, which way I think if he went out, whether if he was willing or not, I think the only way he could go out would be the back door. Because if he went out the front door, according to, I think, Seth and others, all of his shoes are right by the front door.
Very good point.
So I would think if you went out the front door, your shoes are right there. Why not grab your shoes? But he allegedly didn't. But yet, the one thing he did allegedly take is this keychain flashlight. And that's, I believe Seth has said that doesn't work anymore. I don't know 100%, but I find it interesting. Obviously, many red flags, but one of the things is, how did they know so fast? With such a tiny item, and maybe I'm overthinking this. This is just a question because I know you're a mother.
Nope, not overthinking it at all. Now, I'm going to apply this a little differently. How did she know the keychain, this tiny little keychain? And I've talked to Seth about whether he has this flashlight thing. His father says he does, but he has full-size flashlights at his father's house. He knows of the keychain light and says that he doesn't believe it's working. But how does she know such a small detail, especially since he left his switch, what it seems like he had, and I think Jennifer Coffindaffer brought this up too. But how does Katie know that flashlight, that exact flashlight is missing from the house, but she cannot tell us what graphic was on that shirt in almost a year? Hey, Dixie, it's nice to see you. The only reason why she said anything about the flashy is because she was asked if he took one. Interesting. He would have taken his treasured item if he planned to leave. I agree 100%. They had just bought snacks that day too. Remember, allegedly they bought snacks. You would think a boy that gets up in the middle of the night to sneak snacks would have grabbed a whole handful of them before he walked out the door. Bad weather is the reason my son and his wife moved there. They both hated this Indiana weather. Oh, well, I'm in Florida weather. I ain't liking it too much either. Beautiful Disaster says, wonder if they checked his sheets. Maybe someone picked him up out of his bed, could have dropped hair from whoever is possible. Well, they'd have to do forensics, which we are hearing they may not have done. I mean, people are saying forensics is not just for DNA analysis. It's for hair, it's for tissue, it's for other bodily fluids, it's for trace evidence, it's to find out if there's foreign microscopic evidence that doesn't belong to the house or cannot be sourced. There's so much that can be garnered from forensic testing. And it's very bothersome for me if that's truly a fact. And it sounds like, Jennifer Coffindaffer may have confirmed that. And that's very concerning, because I thought maybe it's possible that when they did that reenactment, a couple weeks later or whatever it was that Miss Bobby had said, I was hoping at that point would have been the forensic evidence, because they were doing it at night and maybe they didn't have to, block off the windows like they would have during the day, and it wouldn't have been so obvious. But is it possible they don't have it? I was hopeful that we were analyzing that wrong. We know of March 20th, he stated that he didn't know that they'd done any type of forensic analysis of his home, and that was on the Smiley's World interview. But again, I don't know if they were present when they did the whole reenactment thing. I think they were out of the home, so they wouldn't have known what they did at their house when they were there, if that's the case. Brianna, right, as she was on the sofa next to the front door talking on the phone, reading a chapter, and windows that were all double locked, and a back door that was locked and too loud and hates loud. No, exactly. She knew about the keychain but didn't remember the clothes Sebastian wore. That's it, Eric. And see, that like when people talk about this stuff, even though we hear it all the time, until people word it differently, sometimes my brain doesn't catch on. But because he was talking about the shoes, the cell phone, and then he happened to say, it's kind of funny that she knew about this really small object, and then the clothes come to me, like the light bulb on top of my head goes off, and it's like, wait a minute, how does she know this small object, which we've heard from the stepfather, if he doesn't clean his room, he packs up all the stuff and it goes out to the garbage. How do we not know that key flashlight didn't somehow wind up in the garbage at some point with, Chris's strict parenting, which just basically means abusing a kid, right? It's just a punishment, which is key word for abuse, right? So how do we know during one of these punishments this keychain flashlight didn't disappear? But she can remember this small little object, but she can't remember the graphic on his shirt in almost a year. You would think if, like, I don't even have biological children of my own, but even my stepchildren, my grandchildren, if they went missing and they were living with me, I would literally audit their whole flippin' room if I didn't have an answer like what they were wearing when they left the house specifically. I would pull out every stitch of underwear, every freaking sock. I would take an entire inventory until I figured out what my child was wearing when they last left the house. He only had 2 pairs of shoes, 3 at the door, but if you remember, one of those tennis shoes were old. And he clearly had new tennis shoes on that evening at the Texas Roadhouse. How do we know? Because we saw it with our own eyes. Those were awfully bright whites. Just saying. You don't get that with old shoes. She did, but KP said he took one only after she was asked by LE. I think she brought up that little flashlight because I think at that point that's when they approached them about the lights in that area that nobody was supposed to know about that got leaked by Nick Barris. Does Seth know about the keychain? I mean, did he actually carry he did have a thing. I can't remember my conversation with Seth because it was so long ago. So I don't want to misspeak at all. when it comes to the flashlight. But I asked him if he had a thing for flashlights, and he did. And if I recall, when his dad was telling me that he has several flashlights there at the house, I'm almost confident that he indicated to me that they were full-size flashlights, not the key, like a keychain type of flashlight. Now I understand at his mother's house he used that as a fidget item, potentially, allegedly, but I don't recall what he said about that. It's like I'm drawing a blank. I remember bits and pieces of the conversation, so I don't want to misspeak, and I don't want to have to ask him again. So I'm just kind of stuck in this, area until he talks about it, on his own. Fun fact, I made spaghetti. That's another, thank you, Lady Roses. The fun fact, spaghetti pancakes this morning. Google it. Google it. I think a lot of people say, who jokes around about that? Who's like, y'all, we had spaghetti pancakes. Google it, y'all. You'll like it. Like, who acts like that when they have a missing child? Again, they're going to say people handle stuff differently, right? That's their excuse for every bad or off behavior, right? They just deal with this differently. They just deal with, I'm so sick of hearing, like, okay, so every single one of our parents that are potential persons of interest all seem to act the same, and they all seem to act the same, which is always differently than the people that don't do things like this. I mean, look at the behaviors of Chris and Katie, and look at the behaviors of Don and Candace Wells. Yes, there are behavioral traits that we attribute. Look at Jacqueline and Trezell West. We have people to compare them to, but let's look at the people we're comparing them to that have the same type of behaviors that they do. It's kind of hard to miss, or to keep constantly saying, oh, people just grieve differently. Well, it's kind of funny because all these parents that do bad things to their kids seem to grieve the same differently differently than anybody else, but they all seem to act the same over there. So it seems like there is a grieving for those types of people and a grieving for these types of people. It doesn't make sense to me. Seth said some months ago that the little keychain flashlight didn't work and Sebastian used it as, yeah, I know he said that, but he would never have known whether it was in his house, and he would have never known whether he left with it. He did say that. But I think my question would be, again, comes back to, we also heard Chris say that if the room wasn't cleaned up exactly as he thought it should be cleaned up, everything goes into the trash can and goes out to the garbage. How do we know that one of those garbage events wasn't his flashlight, is my point. Not that he didn't have it, and not that he didn't fidget with it, and not that it wasn't known that he did have something like that and fidget with it. He also fidgeted with pennies, and he also fidgeted with paper clips. But there was no pennies or paper clips missing from the house. So, there is that. That's the point I'm trying to convey more than anything, So I just don't know. I totally agree with you, Betty. We all know who's guilty and had something to do with it. We ain't dumb. I think it was planned. The 3-hour call was planned. He couldn't have left his phone on call and left in. He could have left his. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm learning that. And that's why I did that whole live on the towers. I know it wasn't the most entertaining live we've ever done, but it really is an educational live, and we do educational lives every now and again. And by all means, I'm not an expert in any of the data forensic stuff. That's why I let you watch it firsthand, like from the trials and from the experts and what the reports that they prepare. So it's not me trying to explain it. It's them on the stand, because they've got to explain it to 12 people that have no clue what they're talking about. So the best way to get you guys to talk about it is to listen to it right from the horse's mouth, not try to explain it myself, because let's face it, we're all learning this stuff together. Now we can identify that they have those reports, but I thought it was very interesting, the step aspect, and that's why I focused on that. Because if you're on the phone, but your phone is stationary and not moving, and you don't own one of these, right? You got a problem. Because how many people actually sit their phone on a bureau and have a conversation with a person? Think about it. How often have you done that? You do just like me. You put your phone on speaker and you still keep researching and playing right along on there and coming up for air and saying, yeah, I get what you're saying, right? So I truly believe that nobody really has. I mean, even when my phone's always on this and I'm always on speaker, but guess what? When I walk from my living room to the kitchen, I grab this. I grab it just like this, pick it up and walk it with me so I can hear our conversation so I don't lose you. So again, your phone is moving. Your phone is moving 10 steps, from the refrigerator to the couch in a camper the size of Chris's, right? So they should have that movement from his kitchen, or maybe in the 3 hours he was talking on the phone with Katie, maybe he had to pee. So you're going to see him get up with the phone and walk it into his little bathroom so he can pee while he's on the phone. We all know everybody does it. I don't want to hear you guys say, ew, that's disgusting. You know you've done it too. I'm just saying. I know you've done it too. What we got here? Oh, Jules. Hi, honey. I hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you, love bug. It's nice to see you. I love that. I love that. Whistle wearing nappies. Everybody knows they do it. Like I'll sit there and for my best friend, it's like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. She's like, just wash your fucking hands. Excuse my language, but I'm not lying. That's basically how the conversation goes. But we all do it. We all do it. So think about it. If you're on the phone with your husband and you gotta pee, or vice versa, one of you guys are on the phone with your wife, do you think you're going to say, hey, honey, can I call you back in a few minutes? I got to pee. At that point, you guys, no way. No way. He's a guy that's married to a woman for all of these years. Dude, he's on he's doing paperwork, right? He'll be on the phone with his wife doing paperwork. You know he would be. And so would your husband. Just tell him to wash their effing hands, okay? We don't want that. Three-way pee. I mute my fiance, LOL. We bring the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. You guys crack me up. You guys crack me up. So now we've got, some behaviors and things that we're missing. What key information are we missing? I think that whole thing about the keychain, but not knowing what print was on his shirt, I think that's critical information for people like us. Sebastian was carried out to that parked car, and the driver took SR somewhere. I believe that. Listen, I know Mob Crew and Jennifer Coffindaffer were just having conversations about the car and everything like that. And this is what I said in the Mob Crew's chat. Oh, thank you, Strawberry. Thank you. God bless you. Love your name. I think, so this is what was kind of talked about in chat, was that she believes that law enforcement saw Sebastian on some type of camera on the 26th. Okay. So she said oh, thank you. Thank you for providing. That was one gifted Bullhorn Betty membership. Psychic Amelia, welcome to this crazy crew we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the Insane Asylum. And to you too, Strawberry. Let's look at this, because Jennifer said something that I don't necessarily agree with. Okay. And of course, this is just her opinion. Based on what she's read. And I take just a slightly different opinion. She believes that because law enforcement is adamant about the 26th and not the 25th, she believes that it's more than just the mom saying it, that law enforcement had to have seen him, that he must have had a proof of life on the 26th. Somewhere in those videos, they must have seen Sebastian. Now, I potentially agree with that in part, but just because they saw him doesn't necessarily mean it was a proof of life video. Okay? I'm not saying I don't know one way or another. I just want to correct that. Okay? I'm not saying that they saw him and he was healthy or they didn't. I just want to make sure that we're correct on this. Just because they saw him on footage or believe that they saw him on footage doesn't necessarily mean that that was proof of life. I don't agree with that for the simple fact because he was not seen on video. That's what we heard, but we've listened to this. I don't think law enforcement is going to tell us everything. I think they've had a lot of information up front because we're going to get back to some other details. They won't. Yeah. We're going to get, nice to see you, Seth. We're going to get back to some other details about this. For the people that have just followed me in the last few months, when we started this case back in March, and I learned that the DA was out on the scene within 24 or 48 hours, I'm still a little hazy on that. I looked past that because in a lot of my cases, I see the DA out there. I see the district attorney or somebody, guiding law enforcement or consulting with law enforcement about a variety of things. It's just something I've seen personally, being out, boots on the ground on the case. And that was something I think people weren't paying attention to at the time, just like me. But I think law enforcement had a handle, and I think Jennifer Coffindaffer also identified this as well. But I think that they had something earlier on in the case than we actually think that they kept away from the public. And why do I say that? Is I think it comes down to the Amber Alert. Okay? I think it comes down to the Amber Alert. I think what they saw on that camera or from an angle is potentially him being loaded into the car to be taken away from the area. Now, remember, there are multiple theories that can happen or could have happened. One is like a parental abduction type of situation. And then another, or custodial interference, I think is what they're calling it, so to speak. And then the other one is more of a grim determination. But either way you look at it, when you look at the facts, which I told you we really weren't going to be looking at, but it's kind of hard not to. When we look at the facts of what we have, now granted, it's not in full context because we're not seeing the full view. We are seeing lights going to a vehicle. We're seeing one light going back toward the house. We're seeing and hearing that a car took off out of the community. I think law enforcement picked up on that long before we did, is my point. You see what I'm saying? I think that they picked that up on that when the FBI or Secret Service was reviewing the footage that I would assume was kind of their forte in part in this investigation up front. Because remember, I love you. I can't even imagine what you're going through. I really can't. I got the flyer today for the vigil and the prayer vigil, and that's hard for me. I can't imagine how hard that is for you. So I know we're sitting here with a lot of faith, and believe it or not, I know I talk about your son's case, and we talk about different aspects, but I definitely do have faith. If I didn't have faith, I probably wouldn't be here, Faith is what keeps us all going. Faith is what keeps us all going. But getting back to it, it comes down to that Amber Alert. And, maybe we didn't see it at the time, but now we've had, a lot of time to analyze everything that's going on. We're constantly now getting some new information that we can plug in are related to like the car and, you know, the Uber driver. Those are key information we didn't have in the timeline. Now we have those in the timeline. We definitely know that the lights are lights, but I feel like they knew about this vehicle by before the 27th when they issued that Amber Alert, because when I'm listening to Jennifer Coffindaffer and we're listening to, you know, how to enact or initiate, oh, have a good night, or have initiate a an Amber Alert, it seems like there has to be like an active Amber, like there has to be some type of active situation, you know, that's going on, where a child is abducted. The Amber Alert is specifically for abductions. And now that we've learned about this car and learned about the lights, and now they're adamant about the 26th, it leads me to believe that they must have seen that. They must have saw those lights. They must have saw those cars, and they must have saw those things within the first 24 hours. And this is very important because of the flashlight situation, right? It seems like the flashlight was introduced sometime after that second day. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't brought up even right away when they started doing interviews. It seems like something that maybe law enforcement was holding back and presented them to ask them questions about the lights. And maybe that's when they said, well, he does have a light. Maybe that was him. You see what I'm saying? So while I don't know, and like I said to Seth, you know, we have faith. It's just that we're coming up on a year. I can't imagine his dad. I can't imagine having to come on these shows and just, you know, try to support creators that are advocating for his son and having to hear some of the things that we're discussing about his son. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine being in his shoes. You know, I don't wish anybody to be in his shoes. But there are definitely some other things other than the evidence that I feel we're missing and we're not taking the cues or the clues from. I mean, some of us are getting it, but there's a lot of people, at least 1/3 of our own population here in this chat, that still hasn't quite connected all the bolts together. So why do we do the work that we do? Is so people have a good understanding of what's going on, because out here in this world there's a lot of people misleading people, and when you strip everything back, you know why they're misleading people. It's coming from one section and one group that is associated with two people, the mom and stepfather. So why would they be doing all of this and accusing all of these people and having their PI manufacture these BS reports and going out here and acting like, well, you know, I'm this, I'm that. I'm having all these conversations with law enforcement, TBI. I'm going to talk to them Monday at our meeting, at our roundtable meeting. I'm going to get this under control. You know, and then we find out that that was all a lie. It just reminded me back at the beginning of this case when Chris was saying that he was cleared and had taken and passed a polygraph test, and then goes on the Nancy Grace show and says, well, I haven't taken a polygraph test. And it's like, what? And that's how I felt last night on the Lore Lodge when that information, or the night before when that information was answered. I'm like, and he kept trying to over explain. And it's like, Seth, if you're still here and see this, know when you look up in the sky, the same sky, and you, what does it say? Looking at the same sky as you, know that your connection, know that's your connection. He knows you will never give up on him. Oh, that's super sweet. They're getting paid to debunk it all. And they're doing a terrible job. You would think that they would be a little more creative, because we have some of the best and the brightest on this platform, you know. people that really know how to analyze things. But I don't think in my opinion, it's not unintentional. It was very much intentional. You want to know why? Because I didn't do any stinking calculations when I was out there. I didn't get a piece of paper and say this degree, that degree, went to this degree, what this is the field of view, you know. I didn't do that. I did it live on my channel. You guys watched me pop out of my car, take my pole, pop it up. I lined it up in the direction that the camera was in, and I caught the same image that what's his name? What was his name? Oh my goodness, I can't remember. The guy that did the 3D imaging. Starts with a P. Anyways, he did that 3D imaging situation, and he caught the same view. I went back and looked. That's why I ran that earlier video of the unscrupulous Pinchot. Okay, thank you. Yes. And I'm like, if I can pop out of my car, get that shot in 5 minutes, and didn't have to do a freaking calculation equation or anything else, then that was intentionally done. Intentionally done. Pinchot Paxton, thank you. You see where I'm coming from? That's why I think the way I think, because as soon as I went out there, from that ruckus video and everything, I knew exactly what I was looking for. It wasn't that difficult to look at that dark lights video and look it up and know exactly what we were looking at. You know? You used observation and common sense. Exactly. But he intentionally, and you know what he did? He tried to convince you by him sounding smart. Well, you know, it was 8 degrees, 75 degrees of feel. He tried to use big things to confuse the shit out of you. To make you believe what he was producing and submitting out there to the world sounded like it was accurate. Use logical and reasoning. So that's the problem I had. You did a live. I remember. Yes, I did. I was live because I wanted to make sure everybody knew I did not step on one piece of property. I was on public property. I stood in the middle of the on the road closest to their driveway. But I got my 9-foot phone holder extension tripod. It doesn't hold very well when it's fully extended, but I extended it all the way up there. I tightened it up, and then I positioned my phone in the angle that the camera was, and it gave me the view. It wasn't rocket science, and I didn't have to do equations or math or use mathematical skills whatsoever. So for them to have to go through all of that just to get a shot, I have to feel it was intentional. And I'm not going to get off that. But one thing we did learn is through this back and forth is that this unknown car went all the way up Kellen to where the construction site was, which is just so happens to be where the dogs led, even though they didn't have Sebastian's scent. So that has changed my mind thought, and I'm not going to get off this until other information it comes forward, that I truly believe the scent started at the construction site and went to the home, instead of from the home to the construction site. Oh, hey, allegedly. It's good to see you, love bug. It's good to see you. It sucks because I'm just now about to get off, but it's good to see you. We're just having some conversations over here. We're having conversations. Oh, thank you, Adrian. 5 Bullhorn Betty memberships. If you guys received your Bullhorn Betty membership, please don't forget to tell Adrian thank you. I appreciate it, love bug. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Debbie SF, I think she meant. Who did I say? Did I say the wrong name? You know, when you're live, you think you're saying one thing, and then you go back and read it, and you say another thing. It's sad we have a PI and a mom and stepdad thinking this is a game. Do you guys remember the games that the Wells played? Do you remember that? They played all kinds of games too. And I'm sorry. this is the second time I've ever seen this happen. I'm sure it's not the only time. I'm sure there's other stories in the past, but stories that I directly covered where parents were playing games with people. The only other example I have of that is the Summer Wells case. Like, that was like, Candace went all in and said, like, what was it? That Don just got picked up by the FBI, you know, something like that. It's like, what did VA say? Oh, good gracious, I'm scared to look. I'm scared to look. I'm scared to look. Where is VA? There were a lot of headaches reported that night. Oh, were you talking about the interview? I'm telling you, my head was throbbing. I was like, it was driving. I think my biggest pet peeve is he would never finish a blessed sentence. I saw that Reality Wins. So if you guys didn't know, they were having a back and forth, and I know Aiden, he's only coming with facts. He's not getting down. And I keep saying I know Aiden. I really don't know Aiden. I know him from the work just over the last few weeks, but when you go back to his stuff, you know he's not getting into the drama. He's not, you know, he just wanted this guy to come on and explain himself. And if SF would have been authentic instead of trying to bullshit people, and he let him have free reign, right? He didn't interrupt him. He didn't challenge him. Like, you talk about a cakewalk of an interview. All he had to do was say what was on his mind. He was provided nothing but time, 2.5 hours of nothing but time to speak whatever he wanted to talk about, and he chose to talk about himself. In my opinion, CP was talking in different voices. I believe that. I was squinting my screen. Oh, gosh, but it was just that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna drive me nuts. This guy's gonna drive me nuts. And I think what got him is like when Aiden said, "You did it to yourself. Like you made it easy, you know." And I think he got blocked from that. But he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be disrespecting. Like, Aiden never said nothing bad about him. And this really goes to the character of this unscrupulous PI. I tried telling you this. He does this flip thing. If he thinks something doesn't look good on him, he blames everybody else. Just like that lady, I'm not even covering the case, didn't even know about, what was her name, Laura or Jennifer or something like that. He blamed me for telling the whole world. He went to the hospital and picked her up and drove her home and let her use his phone to call his mother or her mother. And somehow he goes and says, I created accounts. I don't even create accounts for myself. Okay? If I wanted to troll somebody, I'd create the freaking things for myself to do my own trolling. Definitely not to harass this Yahoo on a case I'm not even covering. I thought I followed him around and covered all his cases. I didn't cover any of his cases. He keeps getting involved in cases I'm involved in. That's the difference. But the long and the short of it is he blames everybody else for his screw up. And the more he keeps doing it, the more he's exposing himself, and the more people are taking the blinders off their eyes. I mean, I'm telling you, there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me and say they're absolutely disturbed, which is funny to me because I've been absolutely disturbed by his behavior for years. But all of a sudden, the blinders are coming off of some of the people, and they are now all of a sudden highly disturbed with his behavior. You can't make this stuff up. But we got to get past him because I'm sick of giving him a platform. At this point, he's a nothing burger. We saw it in black and white. You know, it's time to move on. He's nothing. He's nothing in this case. All he's going to be doing from this point on is trying to toot his own horn. He's going to be mocking people because he doesn't have any facts to support it. He's going to keep using these people that do support him, which are trash. They've all lost their credibility. What did I tell? Remember at the beginning of this case? Do you guys remember that? The ones that were with me? What did I say? By the time this is all said and done, this case right here is all said and done, every last one of them would lose their credibility. Did I not say that? I said that. Here we are, almost a year later. That revelation is creating. It's in, you know, it appears that my thoughts back then are coming true. And there was a lot of reasons why I said that, because I knew that they could not sustain this rhetoric that long without, as more information comes out. I knew I was on the right track because we did boots on the ground. I did a fact-finding trip, right? We didn't do a protesting trip. We did a fact-finding trip. And I found out a lot of facts. So, selfie stick Steve. Rod. I hope Aiden just doesn't I don't think he's going to let it bother. Well, I kind of think he is going to let it bother him a little bit, because he really did give SF a fair shake to try to have that open communication. And I think SF knew he tanked that interview, and immediately, as soon as he was done with it and he realized how terrible he did, he started attacking Aiden. And that is really a shame, because let me tell you something. If I was on an interview and I felt like they were just doing, I would have, there was nothing that prevented SF from clicking off, hanging up, and moving on, right? He does have self-control. He is the one that put himself on that interview. If something wasn't going his way, or, you know, Aiden was doing something nefarious on the show, he could have just deleted himself out of that show. Problem solved. He didn't do it. He waited until the entire interview was over and then decides to dog SF. But I think all of these things, from their behavior, their actions and behaviors at the beginning of this case, and I'm talking about the mom and stepfather and the father, because let's face it, the father's behaviors are in line with what we expect to see from a parent that has lost their child and has nothing to do with it. On the other hand, you've got the other set. Oh, thank you, Georgia Patriot. Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate that. Welcome to this crazy crew we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the Insane Asylum. Thank you, guys. So anyways, we're going to leave it at that, but I think it's their initial behaviors at the beginning, telling news crews not to leave, not telling the boss that the son was missing, you know, just their odd behaviors at the beginning, the people that they're associating with, the people that they hired to represent their son. You know, when I heard that it made me physically sick. Because how dare him? Because that's not representing Sebastian whatsoever. What we do is represent Sebastian, because we don't allow people to pull wool over our eyes. And if he's this great private investigator, he should have a lot more common sense than he has been displaying. Just my opinion. All right, guys, rock it out with your coffee beans out. Don't forget to be fearless. We finally got our official fearless sign tonight. Yay! Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And until next time, please be safe. But more importantly, don't say it with me. Kind to one another. All right, guys, make it a great evening. I'll see you back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. God bless you.